This video is going to be about a really weird kind of factoring called factoring by grouping, and you almost never use it, and we can teach it to you, and so we do, but it's very, very hard to actually find questions where it's useful, so it comes and goes really quickly, and it just sneaks up in weird places. And it comes when you have to factor something that looks like this, that basically has 4 pieces. Now, because it has 4 pieces, that means that this old thing is not going to work. So actually, let's just get rid of the whole thing. So we don't have any convenient shortcut for this. And the other thing that you're going to notice is that you can't pull anything out. There's nothing to pull by common factoring. And the way you tell that factoring by grouping is something you're supposed to use is when you have exactly 4 items, and this is it, and you almost feel like you should be able to do common factoring. So there are things that keep popping up over and over again. So you notice there are multiple M's, there are multiple 2's, there are multiple A's, there are multiple B's, but nothing quite sticks out. Nothing is common to all 4 terms. And so the way this works, let's get rid of all of this, is similar to what we did when we were factoring the second type of trinomial, where you imagine splitting this in 2. And if you have 4 things and you have a lot of repeating things, you can see what happens. If I look at just the left side, I can pull out an A. And I'm left with M plus 2. If I look at just the right side, I can pull out a B. And I'm left with M plus 2. And since both of them end with the same bracket, I can pull that out to the front. And I'm left with just reading A plus B. So it's a weird kind of factoring, and the problem is just being able to recognize when it's useful. So 4 things together in a group, you can't quite manage to common factor, and you've got reason to think that this is something you should be able to factor, usually because it showed up on a test and the question says factor. So let's look at another example. This is something that is not likely to turn up until maybe grade 12, but it can be done in the same way. I imagine dividing this in 2. And again, there are things that are, keep showing up. So, for example, both of these are divisible by 5. There are lots of x's. These 2 numbers are divisible by 3. But there's nothing I can quite get to fit exactly. So if I take them in 2, this left side, I can pull out x squared. And I'm left with x take away 3. And in the second half, both are divisible by 5. If I take out 5, there's going to be a plus here, and I want a minus here. Get rid of my scribbles. So I should take minus 5. And that would be x minus 3. And sure enough, they both end with the same thing. So x minus 3 gets pulled out to the front, left with x squared minus 5. If this were a different number, so if, for example, there were, say, a 9 here, this could be factored. This would be x plus 3, x minus 3, because that's a difference of squares, which is a different video, but none of that works, so we'll get rid of all of that and not confuse things. And that's really all there is to it. Where you do see this is something like this. So we already know how to do this from before. I look at the 6 and the 3. 6 times 3 is 18, and I want to make the complete list of ways to make 18 by multiplication. Oh, that's not what I want. 1 times 18, 2 times 9, 3 times 6, and I look for a pair that I can combine to make 7. This is the video on factoring trinomials, the second one. And if I put a 9 and a 2 together as +9 and -2, so I can separate these, 6x squared minus 2x plus 9x minus 3, divide this down the middle. And so this really is factoring by grouping. We just didn't tell you it was factoring by grouping. Let's go through this quickly. 3x comes out of the first one. 2x, no, I'm sorry. I'm totally wrong. This is why you don't try and talk and do math at the same time. These are divisible by 2, which means that's a 3x minus 1. Gosh, I hope that's right. And plus, I can pull a 3 out of this one. 3x minus 1. Oh, good, that worked. They both end with the same thing, so I can pull that out to the front. 2x plus 3. So factoring by grouping is kind of related to factoring these kinds of trinomials, except the reason it's not useful to think of it that way is because, yes, you're factoring by grouping when you have 4 things, but the middle 2 things always become a like term as the third middle thing. So 4-term things that can be factored by grouping don't show up by accident. They only show up on tests that have like a little factoring section where somebody is trying to check to see whether or not you know how to do factoring by grouping, and then they kind of let you forget about it. This is the only time when really it shows up in, the real world when you're trying to factor big complicated things, which is a big section of grade 12. So there you go. Enjoy that if you see some questions, and hopefully it's not too hard. As always, if there is a topic that you don't see a video for here on this channel and you would like to learn more about it, just leave a note in the comments and we try and get them out as quickly as possible. Thanks very much and enjoy your math homework.